And here we go. Man, one of my absolute favorites. Love watching him from afar. Now watching him here on Fight Bananas. James Lynch, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing awesome, Dave. Thanks for having me on. I do watch your show a lot, so it's cool to be on here. And what an intro, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you. Yeah, really do. Like we talked a little bit off air, just someone who myself kind of getting into the business over the last 2 years, doing podcasts for now around 14, 15 months. You're definitely one, if not the guy. A year ago, I'm like, okay, I just like your demeanor and style. And I hope that fighters think the same of me. Almost everyone that's been on the show has been on my show again. So I think we have good rapport, and I always hear that about yourself. So I really take a great merit with that, you know?
Yeah, no, it's important. And I'm glad you brought that up because I noticed that with your interviews as well, you go sort of beyond the typical fight stuff and you make it more comfortable and more of a conversation. And that's such a hard thing to do when it comes to interviews. So it's a skill that you have. And I love how you cover a lot of the Florida scene because I know even for myself, like I live in Canada, I live in Vancouver, but it's cool to just see people really focus on certain areas that maybe aren't getting as much coverage. Like you'll do sort of the, island fights or, some of the other promotions, Titan FC, that are happening in your area, which is very cool. So yeah, it's been great to watch your stuff as well, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I love Florida. Florida guy for sure. And yeah, we're super lucky. American Top Team, MMA Masters down here in South Florida. The Panhandle's just been on fire over the last 18 months, pushing a lot of fighters and, with the company. So yeah, very lucky, very blessed to have a good 3-hour, 4-hour driving distance. The whole family, the wife likes it when I can drive and drive back,
Yeah, and credit to you too, man. I know you got a family. I have a 3-year-old, so I know what it's like to try and balance, the MMA stuff and family as well. And so it seems like you're doing a good job of it because I know it can be difficult, especially like for me, like I'm on West Coast time, so a lot of the fights are on. I got to do dinner in my bath with my kids, so it's like trying to balance all that, man. It can be a difficult. And I only have one kid. You have a couple, right? So that's crazy.
Four kids. 8-year-old son, 3-year-old son, and then myself and the wife definitely wanted the princess. We wanted the girl, and we were so lucky and blessed. We got 2 girls. We had twin girls, literally born New Year's Eve. Kayla Harrison wins the championship. And it was so funny. I talked to Kayla like the week before, and she said the same thing, like the report. Like we talked she knew my wife was pregnant and very, very close. And she's like, Dave, we can still do it. I'm like, yeah, I got 5 days left. I should be okay. Yeah. And it was so funny. I'm in the hospital. I'm taking a picture of the twin girls being born, and she wrote a really, really nice thing to me about like how if you can communicate with, with me during this moment, you're going to go all the way. Like you can go all the way to the top. And, my wife knows how much I love doing this. And of course, how much I do love the family. And it's just the world keeps on spinning. So
yeah, but it's good to have that balance, man. I like how you've sort of made that a priority, and I'm the same way. Like there's times when it's just like, look, I'll PVR the prelims. I got to attend to some family stuff. I'll catch up later type thing. So all the power to you, man. And by the way, my birthday's New Year's Eve too. So there you go.
Hey, the twins and now Lynch. Here we go. We get the world's good spot.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, very cool. There's definitely 3 big things I want to jump in with you. Broad topics, all the time. And same thing. There's so many shows and there's so many guys and girls who cover MMA, and they can tell you, yes, Michelle Watterson won via split decision, and then the co-main event's this, and that's cool and that's great, and we love that and more power to that. But we don't do that here. We really like to think beyond and broader and just try to grab new stuff, and it's what we do. So probably the main thing I heard out of this weekend and almost every MMA is that Mikey Rods, Ed Herman, the nut shot or the liver shot. I just talked to Tyson Chartier. He's still not happy about it. Still, it's been 72 hours and they're trying to get the win back and all of that nature. And right away, and we talked about it on our show before a couple times, is it just MMA replay? It's 2020. Human error is important. I think it's still important that we're not robots and not machines, and it's okay for a little, breaking the rule a little bit. But on a decision, on a game-changing, career-changing win for maybe both men, they need to get it right. That's where I stand. That's where I stand. And I talked to Tyson about it. He thinks so too. And I think they can bring an MMA replay a little bit like football. Maybe 1 per fight per corner. And if they think it's there needs to be a little bit of a common sense rule we talked about, like a game changing move. Maybe there can be some kind of replay, some kind of buzzer, maybe the ref. I'm just throwing some out there. What do you think, James? And I would just love for you to take it away and we'll bounce back and forth.
Well, it's great timing you got me on here because literally, who did I talk to maybe 30 minutes ago? Mike Rodriguez. So I'm on the same wavelength here, in terms of what happened in the fight. And look, you're right. We are in 2020. We do have instant replay. Why not use it? Why don't they do what they do in the NHL or a lot of the sports? I'm a hockey guy, obviously being in Canada. If there's a call on the ice, they're going to Toronto to check that call. Why can't they have someone in Vegas checking the replay and saying, hold on a second, we got to go back here and take a closer look? Because in hockey, it happens all the time with, the puck going through the net or whatever. Like there might be like a weird bounce or that's something the ref didn't see, and they have two referees on the ice anyway. So it's like one of those things where, sorry, I should say they have one referee and then they have obviously the linesman as well. But it's one of those things where, you have to sort of utilize what you have. And, the thing I have the biggest issue with, David, is just that, here's a guy, Mike Rodriguez, and I spoke to him, and Mike's, he's not mad at the ref. He's taken sort of the stoic approach sort of going forward, being like, look, I'm not mad at Ed. I'm not mad at the ref. It happened. We're going to move on. But I mean, that does suck, right? This could have been a 2-fight win streak for Mike. We're talking about his career here. It's not like he's a 20-year-old and a loss is not a big deal. I mean, there's a guy in his 30s trying to move his way up the ladder, and a loss like this really sets him back. And there's no repercussions. If you and I make a mistake in our job, we're going to hear about it. There's going to be repercussions. If a fighter does something wrong in a fight, if someone throws an illegal blow, you get disqualified for that, right? That's what happens in the sport. Why is it not the same with referees and judges? I don't get that. I know the commission stuff's a little weird, but I think there's got to be more of a guideline for situations like this. And I think with instant replay, it's as simple as, hey, Tyson could go to, who's in the corner of Mike Rodriguez, say, hey, look, we want to call on that. They go back to, and yes, I mean, there could be some complications there because then fighters get rests or whatever, but go back and, have a look back in Vegas, get someone to, they have a tech team, they have a production team, get someone who's licensed to actually go and look at it, make their call and say, hey, look, that should have been, that the referee screwed that one up. Now, let's say you don't even do that. Let's say we even have the ability to look at it after the fact. Why can't they change fights? Like, this is one thing I don't understand either. Like, why is it when something happens, like if a fighter tests positive for, performance enhancing drugs or marijuana or whatever, it's turned to a no contest. So why is it any different here? If the fighters themselves didn't make the mistake, but there was a mistake in the fight, why can't they do that? So that's another thing I'd like, because I think, to my knowledge, I think there's only been one fight that I can remember that's been overturned in the last couple of years that was notable. And that was the Chaz Skelly and Bobby Moffett fight. I don't know if you know this, but like recently, I think it was even this year or at the end of last year, they finally overturned that fight. But guess what? That fight was in like 2017. So why is it taking this long to go through and do this process? I'd like them to use this example and say, look, we got to fix some things, because we're talking about fighters' careers here. It's not just like someone made a mistake and whatever. I mean, Mike, he shouldn't have had the fight stop. Absolutely not.
Right. So many things there to unpack.
I know. I talk really fast, but yeah.
It's all good, brother. My wife is sitting on the couch with us. We're watching the fights. We're feeding one of the girls. My wife is a MMA fan through me, knows some of the names, and she does she watches some of the interviews, so she kind of starts, gravitating to some. One of her good friends, Hannah Goldie, down here in Florida, UFC fighter. Yeah. She watches the fight. 15 seconds. She saw a replay. She kind of saw what happened, saw the replay again. She goes, the guy Mikey should have won. Like, this is a closet MMA fan who barely knows, the intricacies of it, and she knew right away. So us, guys that are so far in it, managers, Dana White could have been there looking at it. No, guys, we messed that up. Or a minute. Hey, the ref stopped it. Okay, we got to fight. Ed Herman shouldn't have had 4 minutes. And that's what Tyson talked about. He said he had 3 minutes and 40 seconds of rest. It wasn't a nut shot. We got to get back to fighting. Mikey, get on him. Like, that's all it needs. And we talked about, I'm really happy Uncle Dana paid him the $12K and he got the win, and that's awesome. But he gets the L. Now fighters see what they can do to Mikey Rodriguez in the third round that he shouldn't have been in. Just so much. There's so many layers that keeps on going. And it's 2020. We have to get it right. I'm pretty gassed on it. There's not a definite, and I'm a resolution guy, and I wish I could be like A, B, and C. And it's not. And it is complicated, but now it's out there. And I think it is time to really dive into it. Dana's got so much power, and the UFC's got so much power. If Bellator or LFA, if these guys don't want to come with it, fine. UFC, be the leaders here, be the leaders of mixed martial arts, and they really got to create some kind of guideline or some kind of rules that they can flip switch quick and get it right. Just get it right.
Here's the unfortunate part, though. Let's say this happens in Saturday's fight, for example, against Woodley and Covington. Let's say this exact scenario happened. There's probably going to be something that comes into place where they're like, okay, we got to review this. But because it's Ed Herman and Mike Rodriguez, not household names, I just think, unfortunately, this is going to go by the wayside. And I hope Tyson's successful. I hope they can figure it out and make this right. But more often than not, if it's not someone they care about, it's just something that goes by the wayside. And that's so unfortunate. That's what really sucks here, is that, if this was a higher profile fight and this happened, there'd be more of an outrage. But I mean, you're not going to see this on ESPN. They might make a little footnote, but it's really unfortunate that this isn't something that more people are outraged about. And by the way, I'm not mad at Ed Herman. I mean, I get his perspective from this too, in the sense that, he hasn't fought in a year. He's had all those fights canceled. They wanted him to fight Kevin Holland while he's in the pool having a margarita, like after they had told him before that he wasn't going to fight. Like, he's had to deal with a lot this year. So I get that. Look, Ed knows he bended the rules. It's within his right. It doesn't fall on Ed. It falls on the referee. Would it have been noble of Ed to say, look, I wasn't hit there. You made a mistake. Of course. But it goes back to the Anthony Smith, John Jones thing. Anthony Smith could have taken the DQ there. And he didn't. And, fans love him for it. But then there's also fans who say he's an idiot. He could have been the light heavyweight champion, right? So, or whatever, it would end in DQ. So yeah, that's where I stand on it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. So kind of the second thing, I definitely want a broad subject, and especially with the Waterson-Angie Hill fight. And anyone that you know this probably more than the next guy, the word robbery gets thrown around so much in mixed martial arts. It was a great fight. A female strawweight fight in the main event is great for mixed martial artists, great for females everywhere. And it was a close, razor-sharp fight. I thought Angie Hill won. That's fine. But I don't get upset one iota. It was razor sharp. If you think, oh, Michelle Watterson won, it was a close razor sharp fight. But I've been on this for years now, that it's just asinine to me that, we know the score in soccer and baseball and football and mixed martial arts in the 5th round of a UFC fight with the technology we have at the Apex in Las Vegas. We don't know where we stand going into the 5th. I don't understand why there's not an MMA scoreboard. Are you with me? Or are you against me?
No, I'm totally with you. The only problem, though, is it still doesn't fix bad judging, because let's say there was, a judge that just didn't know what they were watching or whatever. I mean, if you're a fighter watching that, it's not going to prevent incompetent judging, because we still see bad scorecards regardless of if we know them or not. But I'm with you. Do the open scoring. I've actually, one of the videos I'm going to have coming out soon, I think I did one already, is I've been asking fighters, what are ways we can improve the judging situation, because it is still a big problem. Right. I'm totally open to open scoring. They do it in Invicta. Why? It seems to be working there. The fighters seem to like it. I think it's good if you're a fighter, if you're down or if it's tied or whatever the deal is, because you never know. It would be great to get perfect judges, but it just doesn't seem like that's going to happen anytime soon, and they still have that. So I think open scoring is a step in the right direction. Now, one thing I did want to mention, because you mentioned robbery, and how this wasn't one. I agree with you there. To me, this is my definition of a robbery. A robbery to me is a fight where someone, you cannot argue a single round for them. And I know that sounds crazy, but in my opinion, for example, like with Volkanovski and Holloway, you probably gave at least Volkanovski one of those rounds, right? Even the biggest Max Holloway has to give Alexander Volkanovski one of those rounds. So it's not a robbery. Yeah, exactly. 2. I scored Volkanovski. That's a whole other issue I had to deal with on my channel when people were like, Max won. What are you talking about? But this fight, not a robbery. I also scored it for Hill, but they gave it to Watterson. That 5th round could have gone either way, as far as I'm concerned, because how do you score that, right? Like Angie, was able to, land some good shots. Watterson's kicking her, though. Is it having much damage? We still got to count those, right? So it's it's one of those tough things where, I think most would agree that Hill won 1 and 2. I think Watterson, you could argue, won all the next 3 rounds, or maybe just 2. That's sort of where the debate is there, but it's not a robbery. If Hill, if whoever, like I said, if you, I think even the biggest Angela Hill fans know that Watterson won at least the 3rd and 4th. That'd be tough to go the other way, but that's why it's not a robbery. Diego Sanchez and Ross Pearson is a robbery. Diego Sanchez didn't win a single round of that fight against Ross Pearson, and Ross, was out in the cold. So that's a better example.
Also, I talked to Laura Murphy today about it, and we talked about judging, and she's a little bit scared in the fight. I don't want to use the word scared, probably a bad word there, but some judging is all about grappler and they're controlling. And if Lauren Murphy gets off the biggest shot in the round or 4 or 6 significant strikes, but if Cynthia is kind of grappling and kind of controlling the fight, who wins the round? So that's some people wrestling a little bit more. Some people I love jiu-jitsu. So some people, when I'm seeing Bryce Mitchell do stuff on the ground, I'm like, dude, what he's doing is amazing. And he's winning the fight. he might not even throw one strike, and he's dominating against Charles Rosa. So there's just a different way of looking at fights. So I get it. So I've always thought, one, more judging would help, 5 or 7 to kind of get it right. But 2, the open, one thing you said there, it doesn't help the bad judging, and it doesn't. But I drive 55 miles an hour almost everywhere. I have kids in school, and when I see that 15 or 20, I slow down. So if Angie Hill knew
good analogy. Sure, I agree.
2-2 going in the 5th, maybe she's like, maybe she thought she was 3-1 and like these 50-50 round, and she was iffy in the 5th. A lot of 3-round fights. You know, we watch fights all the time, every weekend now, and almost Friday, Saturday, or Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. It would just help the fighters know, okay, where do I stand? I'm up 2-0. It's 1-1 here. I really got to go. And I always hear, this is the thing I hear, the backlash is if the fighter's down 0-2 and Mike Perry's up 2-0 and he's going to try to dance. Mike Perry's not going to dance. And you know this more than the next guy too. Like, you can't slow down in a fist fight. It's not soccer or hockey that you can kind of stall and kind of pass around. You can't pass in mixed martial and fight it. You can't do it. If you take off your foot off the gas a little bit, I think fighters like Mickey Gall will submit Mike in the 3rd. So I don't know. I just think an open scoring will just help so much. It would just give clarity. And I think the word robbery would be put to bed, because there's bad calls in basketball and football all the time. But if you know the score, okay, Dallas is down by 3 to the Rams, I know where we're at. I know what we got to do. And that's my 2 cents.
I'll tell you a couple things. Open score, I'm with you there. Add more judges. I think you should get 5 instead of 3. And if you want to throw some fighters in there, that's fine. But they have to go through a background check, and they have to know every gym that they ever trained at as much as they can, because you're going to get some bias in there, obviously. Like they had that with the Trevin Giles and James Krause fight, where one of the judges was, I think, trained with Trevin Giles, which is like, should never happen. So things like that. And then, you know, I just think because that those are ways you'll improve it. You'll never fix judging. There's going to be people that no matter what, they're going to see black, they're going to see white. But yeah, those are some solutions. And then just changing in the system as a whole. Why does it have to be 10-9? That's a boxing model. What about, you know, you put a set of criteria saying, okay, maybe we go a little bit more, because what if you have like a 10-8 where, you know, let's say someone didn't even throw a single punch and they were this close to getting finished. That should be like a 10-1 instead of a 10-8, right? So those points should carry over. Like if you get absolutely destroyed in one round and then you manage to like make the next round close and the next round close, that person could win that fight, but that should count for the fact that you were close to finishing that fight. So that's one there too. That and weight cutting, those are the 2 I hear about all the time about some issues.
100% in hockey. If you have a bad period, you're down 3-0. It's not just 1-0. There, you
have to carry that. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it keeps on going. And bad pitching. If you have a bad start, I'm a big Yankee fan. If you have a bad first inning, you give up 5 runs. You don't just give up 1. You barely don't just lose. I think, and this might go a little bit too over the top, and this might be a little bit too 2020, and I think there should almost be every fight should be a 10-8 round, at least one. Every fight. That really makes the difference. It really, I think, pushes fighters too to kind of keep going. You can feel sometimes a guy is winning or a girl, and they kind of, we know we're ahead. We're up 2 or 3, but if you can give a 10-8 round in the 3rd, can really, really put a lot of things in order. So, Dana White, I think our phone numbers are easy to find. Lynch and Auken, we're just changing the MMA scene as we know it.
Yeah, no, we just want to see improvements. I mean, you're never going to fix everything, but I think these are steps in the fact that like it just happens and it's like, oh, it's like 247, all that bad judging in February. It's like, oh, just bad judging. No, let's fix this. Let's make this better, because there's careers on the line here that we're talking about.
Yeah, careers, money, it's very, very big. But all right, so this weekend, UFC Vegas 11. We love it. It's definitely it's getting a lot of great praise, a lot of buzz around the card. I saw a tweet today. Definitely, a big journalist was saying it's the best UFC, not a pay-per-view. It's really good. I don't know about that far, but it's a really good card. Throw out a couple things that are jumping at me. I picked it up here on Tapology, and we can see it in the background. But what's jumping at you? What upset do you see? Is there a lock you like on the main card? Let's just jump around on it.
There's so many interesting fights in here, and I would have to go look back at some of the the other fight night cards, but this is definitely up there. I mean, you got Cowboy Cerrone as a co-main event on this card. What does that say about how good this is with the name value he has? Here's a guy who fought Conor McGregor this year. So a couple things. I don't know why Khamzat Chimaev is such a big favorite over Gerald Meerschaert. I don't get that. I get that he's looked good in the first 2 fights, but look who he fought. Journeyman and John Phillips, a guy in Reese McKee who's a lightweight fighting at welterweight, and we're not looking at Gerald as this guy who's fought nothing but tough guys. Even his his losses, let's forget about the Ian Heinisch one. Most of his losses are close decisions, like the Eric Anders fight or the Kevin Holland fight. And those are good middleweights. I mean, it's not like we're talking about a guy who's just, has a couple fights. Gerald's got 44 fights. Chimaev's only got 8 or 9. So that's a huge experience gap. I know Chimaev has some experience in other disciplines, but still, I mean, that's a huge gap there. There's no way he should be the biggest favorite on this card. Sure, you want to give him a favorite after those 2 fights, fair enough, but minus 440 is what I'm seeing on some of these lines. That's nuts. So I'm actually picking Meerschaert, and I definitely see value in him at plus 350. Some other fights that sort of stand out here. I got to pull for my Canadian guy, TJ Laramie, a little bit here. 22 years old. This kid is the real deal. Looked really good on Contender Series. I know it was a little bit premature. Yeah, he fought a tough guy in Daniel Swain as well, too. And, Swain ended up getting that rib injury, but he's fighting a guy in Derek Minner who's got a lot of experience himself, sort of a journeyman in a good way. I mean, he paid his dues on the regional scene to get in the UFC. And here's a guy who also I know is training at Glory MMA for this camp, which is interesting. Training with the guy who beat him in his debut, Grant Dawson. So how interesting is that Minner's going into this one? So, I am expecting Laramie to win, but Minner's a guy you can never count out. So I'm expecting a really good fight there in the featherweight division on the prelims. What else do we got here? A fight I'm sure you're paying attention to just because of where he's located. Erwin Rivera and Andre Uhl. That's going to be a great fight with Rivera, obviously a Titan FC alum, taking on Uhl, who, let's be honest, was given a gift in his last fight. I don't think he beat Jonathan Martinez, and the judges felt otherwise. But I think Uhl's kind of got that in the back of his head, being like, people are doubting me, whatever. I'm going to go show what I'm made of. He also recently had another child, so we'll see how he looks in that one. So many good fights in here. We'll go over just another one here. How about this Johnny Walker and Ryan Spann fight? I think this is a pretty tough fight for Johnny Walker to be coming back off of 2 losses. I mean, he got pretty dominated in that last fight against Krylov, was taken down at will, fighting a guy in Ryan Spann who's undefeated in the UFC. I know he doesn't have the experience maybe that a Johnny Walker has, but and I know he did struggle a bit with Sam Alvey in that split decision win, but Ryan Spann's very dangerous, has knockout power, definitely has the wrestling as well. So that's a super interesting fight. Like, I think there's definitely some value on Spann as the underdog there. And then the last one I'll sort of mention here is the Nico Price and Donald Cerrone fight. Nico Price, like the guy's like, it's like he woke up on Christmas Day finding out he's fighting Cowboy Cerrone, one of his idols. So, but I think this is a case where people might be overlooking Cowboy. You got to look at who he's fought in the last couple fights. The Pettis fight, I think people would have argued Cerrone won that one. He's fighting McGregor, Gaethje, Ferguson. Like, that's just a killer's row. And everyone's like, he's past his prime and over the hill. Well, he might be, but we'll see how he does against a Nico Price, because I'll tell you, all those guys that Cerrone fought, I think would give Nico Price a run for his money. So we'll see how this one goes. I think, Cerrone at welterweight, I think is a little bit more durable terms. And saying that, I know he got finished by Conor, but in general, I think it's going to be a tough fight for Nico Price. And I do think Cowboy can pull this off. So keep an eye on that one too in the co-main event.
You literally just said the 1,160 words I've been saying. All those fights been highlighted. I can't believe how on I'm with you. I'm all in with GM3. I already have the bet on with him. I even have a parlay with him as well. It's insane. I like Irvin down there as well. I like your boy TJ a lot down there too. I just think, Minor is just a tough, gritty guy, and I think one of the most underrated. When people want to bet on mixed martial arts, and we have a betting podcast underneath our umbrella here, and the one thing I always just kind of like, I just want to throw this out there, veteranship and ringmanship, and a guy who's been around for 36 fights and 38 fights and have been in 10 UFC wars, and guys that this is their debut or first fight, I just watch it. You know what I mean? Like I understand the why he's the favorite, and he probably will win and should win, but I love those veteran guys. I love grit. I love heart. You just can't replace it with anything. I like Spann to beat Walker as well. I don't like Johnny Walker's chin right now. Something is just not right. Spann is going to hit it. I think he will connect sooner or later. And it's so funny. We talked for 8 minutes on this card and we haven't mentioned Woodley and
Covington, of course. Yeah. So my pick on that one's kind of simple. I mean, there's a reason. There's a couple. First off, I think the line's a little too off. I think Colby will win, but I do worry that he's with a new camp now at MMA Masters. Everything's been kind of top secret. He hasn't done any media leading into this fight. I haven't spoken to him, and I know a lot of the other major outlets haven't. The only interview he's done was with Mike Heck at MMA Fighting, and that was right when the fight was announced. So I have no idea what type of camp he's had leading into this one. Colby works hard. He trains very hard in the gym. I'm expecting a good Colby Covington here, but that's a bit of a concern. And I know, for Woodley, spent a lot of time with Dean Thomas. I know Gerald Meerschaert, who I just spoke to today, he's got to work with Tyron as well. So that should be a little bit interesting to see how Woodley's looking after 2 losses. And I think, again, it's a case too where people might be overlooking Woodley because yes, he lost his last 2 fights, but look who he lost to, Usman and Burns. I mean, we're talking 2 of the top guys. So I'm going to take Covington by decision. I think the pressure and the cardio is going to be too much for him. I am interested if this fight does stay standing because I don't think the Woodley of old is there. The knockout Woodley, the Woodley that knocked out Robbie Lawler is there anymore. However, he's still, I think, better in the stand-up department. So if it does go to the mat, how is Woodley's wrestling going to hold up? He started as a wrestler. So it's like, how can that all translate into this fight? We'll see. But I think Colby's going to be too much. I think the fight's going to go kind of similar to the Lawler. Actually, it'll probably be more like the RDA fight where it's a little bit closer, but I think Colby will be getting his hand raised. But I see a decision there. If you're looking for some value in this one, I'd look at the decision prop for Covington.
Yeah, I like that as well. But I agree with you with the first thing you said about the fight. I think Woodley is being overlooked. The being plus 300 and 320 almost to this morning to me is outrageous. There's just some guys you don't want to get fired up, right? Like I'm an old basketball guy. There's always a guy in the other team you don't talk trash to. You leave that guy alone and you don't want to wake him up because when he does wake up, he's not the nicest to play ball with. I think in a weird way, Covington has woke up Woodley. And I think Woodley knows if he loses this one, he might be out because those guys I don't see Tyrod Woodley being in a prelim. He's just not that guy. He's got, he has a rap career and he just has other things outside of mixed martial arts. So I think if he loses this fight, in a weird way, this might be it for Woodley. I can see him, this might be gone. And I agree with you. Usman, 25 minutes, and the same thing with Burns. So those are 2 good 50 minutes to go through. Like that's good stuff. He didn't get stopped, didn't get finished. Same thing. Yeah, I talk to Dean all the time. I really think this is, we won't see Woodley of 2014 or 15, but I think we're going to see a pretty fired up Tyron Woodley, and I would not be shocked if Woodley does go out there and dominates, like really puts it on him. You brought up a great point about Covington. Could be a creature of habit. He's doing a lot of stuff with Trump and doing a lot of stuff with media, like a kind of outdoor. He's not an American top team anymore. Different. Like these are just things we got to see. Like I don't like betting on questions, and I want to see the answers first, and then I feel good putting my money on it. But I'm with you. It's a great card. You mentioned the Cowboy. Yeah, that's Murderer's Row. I had that list down too. Showtime. I had that fight going to Cerrone 2-1. Yeah. Connor's Connor. People can say what they want. He did the same thing to Jose Aldo, and we saw what Aldo's done since the return. He's looked pretty damn good in a lot of fights since. So Connor's Connor. He was doing really good against Ferguson as well, and then Gaethje is Gaethje. It's just I like Cowboy a lot in the co-main event. I think he did a really good thing. He sat out. It's been 8 months.
Yeah.
So I think that was really good on Cowboy to finally sit back and kind of get away from a little bit, get the chin going, get his body going. I like Cowboy a lot in that fight. I think that's probably one of my most locked picks on the whole card. And I know everyone's thinking it's a war, and I think it's going to be a good fight, but I like Cowboy a lot.
Can't complain with that. I picked him as well too. So we'll see. See you on Saturday.
James, I know you're extremely busy. Love talking to you. That 30 minutes flew by. I think people really, really like it. Anytime, I would absolutely love and adore to have you back on the show. Preview cards, any kind of big moments or a big fight announcement, would absolutely love it. But please, all your platforms. I know you're doing a couple different things now. Tell the world, and huge fans over here, huge fans.
Well, thank you so much for that. It was great talking to you. I'm always love talking fights, so really appreciate it. Easiest thing is you see the Twitter handle there, and the same on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Same with the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. I keep it very consistent. That's the easiest way to find all my stuff. I put all my interviews. I work for 10 different outlets, so I just throw all the interviews in playlists. Some of them go on my channel, some of them don't. I do a podcast every week at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Mondays to preview an upcoming UFC card, and then I do a Q&A every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern time as well, answering your questions. So thanks so much for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Likewise, my man. And last little thing, I talked to Tyson about it, and he mentioned the word ESPN and Fox and all of that nature. And it's 2020, and with different outlets and YouTube and money to be made and sponsorships and shows. Are you intrigued? You said the 10 different outlets. I love that road. Like I would really, it's hard when the ESPN kind of has the thumb over you a little bit and they want you to do this and this. Like I said, I do have a family. There's some days and weekends I don't want to be gone. And I love mixed martial arts and the people that know that, but I want to be home with the family. Do you love being an outlet, a Lynch on Sports? You're your own outlet. Or one day, yeah, if ESPN came and they gave me 6 figures, life's good and I'm with them.
Yeah, it's just got to be the right fit, like a lot of people have been asking me about this. If it's something where I think it's a good opportunity for me to grow in my career, absolutely, I'm open to that. But there's also a part of me right now that's liking the fact that I kind of control my own destiny here. Yeah. Like if something happens, I'm still getting money coming in because I'm working for so many outlets. So it's a good spot. I mean, yeah, I love salary and the benefits, but I also like the fact that I'm controlling a lot of this and I can take on as much work as I want, which is great. So I'm more than happy with that. So it's an interesting time, interesting industry, right? So
it is. I love it though. I wouldn't change it for the world. I really do. I love it. It's been a great ride and can't wait to keep on growing in it. But Lynch on Sports, Twitter, YouTube, great page. My main man, appreciate your time and we'll talk soon. All right.
Sounds good. I appreciate it, David.
All right, James. Have a good one, brother.
Thanks, buddy.